Hi, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
This is, this is not the Bible Reloaded.
Are you going to include this motherfucking bullshit?
And what is the point of the Catholic Church if it says, oh, well, we couldn't know better because nobody else did? Then what are you for?
Wow, your voice sounds amazing now. Oh, it's like fucking gorgeous.
And admire the man who said, yes, I'll gut my kid to show my love of God. I'd say, no, fuck you.
So if I offend some of you, I don't mean to offend you personally. I may offend some of your ideas, but that doesn't bother me at all.
But I'm an obnoxious American, so you know.
Welcome to the Watchtower and Awakening podcast. It's episode 14. I am your host, Mr. Watchtower, and we're joined once again by Norris. Hi, Norris.
Hi.
Hey.
Woo. Been a while.
Yay. Where have you been? It's been a long time.
I've been reflecting on my joblessness.
And have you had a breakthrough?
No.
Okay, so...
Sore subject.
Imagine if I were paying you for the podcast.
That would probably help to appease my wife.
Okay, I'm going to cut straight into it because we don't have much time because the interview that I'm about to play was between myself and Jen August. It lasted for about an hour, so I'm going to cut straight to it as soon as I can. Jen August.
Jen August?
Jen August.
Who is Jen August?
She's prolific on Twitter. She likes to sort of... obviously, she does the whole atheism thing, which is why I've got her on the show. She was sort of raised a Catholic. Her father is like a secular kind of atheist Jew. So she went through Catholicism, moved away from Catholicism, moved into Judaism, went through Judaism, and then the sort of reason and facts and things like that she found out gradually drew her away all the way towards atheism.
Someone should write a book about her.
Somebody should write a book about her. Well done, yeah. Somebody should and is writing a book about her. Chris Minsky is writing a book about her. We get towards that. We get to that towards the end of the interview. Chris Minsky, who interviewed myself and Jen on separate episodes of the You Without God podcast. He's written a few books before. In fact, I think one of his books is actually entitled You Without God. And his new book that will be out very soon is basically taking all of the true life stories from Jen August. So if you wanna check her out, or check Chris Minsky out, or check You Without God out, or check the podcast that we have done previously, I'll link those below. So feel free to check those out. Are you okay, Norris?
I'm good, thank you. Very excited.
Are you ready for the interview?
As ready as I'll ever be.
All right, here we go. Right, okay. I reckon we can just go. Yeah?
Yeah, let's do it.
To go? Right, okay, so episode 14 we're on. You might not know it if you've never listened to the show, which I believe you haven't, but we're on episode 14. So with me is Jen August. Hi, Jen.
Hello.
Do you mind if I call you Jen? Is it Jennifer? Have you got any name you'd prefer?
Jennifer's fine. Whatever comes out of your mouth.
Brilliant. I'm in luck then because I probably wouldn't remember no matter what you said. Right, okay. If you'd just like to just tell us a little bit about yourself, what it is that you do, what it is that you like to champion on Twitter, and probably you'll already answer my first question, which will be, why am I bringing you on the show?
Okay. Well, what I do is when I'm asked that question, what do you do? I basically just say I exist, and I do what I feel like doing, depending on the day. So what I would like to think that I champion on Twitter is I'm very focused on recognizing that most people lack a sufficient level of self-esteem, and that is the core of all the issues, problems, whatever that they'll deal with as they go through life. So if that's never addressed, everything they do, their work, their relationships, anything, will be affected by that. And it will reflect. Their success will be, the level of success in these things will be a direct reflection of how you feel about yourself. And so, after I went through my own experience with domestic violence, and I really needed to call myself out on that. I just absolutely came to the point where I am not seeing myself in the appropriate way. And I am therefore attracting unhealthy people, and I'm making these choices, even though they're toxic, but they're my choices. And so when I continue to make these choices based on how I see myself, I'm bringing in all this bullshit. So if you want to eliminate bullshit, you've got to change yourself. You have to change your view of yourself. You have to see yourself authentically. You have to be honest about what you don't like about yourself. And then you have to actually go in there and change it. And when you complete that, which could be a lifelong process, but you could get a good chunk of it done in a relatively short amount of time if you're committed enough. And then you go back out there and you put your authentic self out there with, reasonable perceptions of yourself in the world, you're going to have less problems, So I would say that I would just like to offer people a perspective shift to maybe get them there, to try to think about themselves, because I often see people on Twitter complaining about every single thing that's going wrong in their lives, their relationships, their jobs, their friendships, the world. Everything's falling apart all the time. And that's not reality. That is what they're creating for themselves. So my recognition of that truth changed everything for me. So that's what I like to offer when I'm out there on Twitter.
I really like the word "seeing yourself authentically." I think that is something that has annoyed me. Not necessarily annoyed me about people, because sometimes you either feel sorry for them or you wonder why they aren't seeing themselves authentically. I think it's really, really difficult to see yourself authentically. I like to think that I do. And I think everybody likes to think that they do, but I think that's the self-deception it can be so powerful that you really can't. A lot of the things that I've seen via your blog as well has been, if you reduce everything down, it's all about identity, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And you know what? Your identity, I obviously, in the beginning stages of building your identity, you're taking everything from your external world and basically wearing it. So how your parents respond to you, how other kids respond to you, the teachers at school, all of that is going to give you the impression that that these people are responding to who you really are. That's not actually true necessarily. It depends on how healthy those people are, right? And what their perspective is. So, you get to the point where, you're a young adult and you're like, what the fuck? Everything's a mess. This is not at all what I thought that life was going to be. But it's really your responsibility to straighten that out. So you have to get to a point where you're going to be rigorous at analyzing yourself and honest about it. You have to take the hits from yourself if you want to improve anything. You can't lie to yourself and say, that you have talents that you don't really have, that you have traits and attributes that you don't truly have. You can't just say you're something and not be that something, So
yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. Is it takes a lot of balls, there's no doubt about it, to put yourself under a microscope and really look at everything. But it's an incredible exercise that will, offer you benefits forever. And it builds confidence. That's the thing that a lot of people don't realize. When you claim the responsibility for your life being exactly where it is right now, when you recognize that that's your responsibility, you're accountable for how it is, you may initially feel a sense of panic and be overwhelmed, and how am I going to change all of this? Don't worry about that so much at first, I would suggest. Just own what you did that you know, or what you're doing that you know is not working, and decide how it could be better. I mean, you can get a professional to help you do this. Obviously, you can go to a therapist and, say, this is what I'd like to accomplish, and get right to work. And sometimes that accelerates the process, and it's great, but not everybody can do that. But it's worth doing. And the authenticity, owning everything that is considered a flaw of yours, automatically empowers you to change that. And then when you make the alterations, what you end up with, you can also claim to be yours. And that's where confidence comes in. That's real confidence. It's not taking some flattery you took from someone else and wearing it and walking around with it. That would be false confidence. So, you have to own your shit, and you have to own your good stuff.
Yeah, good, yeah. The good, yeah. I suppose if you take on board the good and the bad, and not necessarily the bad, but just the real. So that, like you say, if you can see yourself authentically, you've got a much better chance at figuring out what it is that you're going to do with yourself, or rather, more to the point, what you're going to do with other people as well.
Exactly.
And I know. See, I first found out about you via the You Without God podcast. You were on episode 4, and I followed you on the very next episode. And I realised that when we were sort of, that there was a bit of an interview process, but then kind of the sort of the point of the show is, what are you without God? And we were both very similar with our answers. We were basically saying, well, without God, we're free. And a lot of people are freaked out by that, because they see that as alone. And but once you do own it, once you do realise this, and you come to terms with the fact that you don't believe that anybody is out there as a safety net, or rather, should I say, any supernatural deity is out there as a safety net. Once you realise that you are it, then you're responsible for good and bad. You can't just throw it to the sky and hope that everything sorts itself out. You do really need to take responsibility for what's happening in your life.
Absolutely. And that, I absolutely love the reality that I am alone. I know that it's a real scary prospect to most people, but when I recognized that I was accountable for how everything went, and then double that up with, there's absolutely, I like that you use the word safety net. I like that term. I mean, when you realize there's no safety net, then you are completely accountable, and you start living your life differently, and you'll begin to recognize that your awareness is much broader, because you're taking into consideration more things that you thought were left up to some supernatural, backup or support. You don't default to that anymore. So that it gives you a lot of power.
You also mentioned something that I was quite paranoid of when I was younger. I left the faith when I was around 15, so I was quite young when I came away from it. I still vaguely believed in God, but it took me a while to sort of, actually understand what it was that I was, which at the time happened to be an atheist, but I didn't know that that's what it was.
Right.
But when I was younger, and you mentioned it in the You Without God podcast, you mentioned the fact that the surveillance was taken away, and you never felt truly at ease or alone. You always felt like somebody or something was watching over you. And
Right.
and to some people, that's really comforting. But it never really sat very well with me, because I felt like it should be comforting. But then going through my teenage years, that to some people it's comforting. But if you're thinking, you can't even masturbate without God staring at you, it becomes a whole different thing, doesn't it?
It feels creepy.
Everything is about guilt, isn't it?
And it's creepy. You know what I mean? If this supernatural being is supposed to be all unconditionally loving you, then why isn't it offering you any privacy in private moments? That would be love. That would be respect.
Yeah.
You just can't get away from it. You can't do anything that's just up to you. And then ultimately, what you do with your life, when you go to Judgment Day, you don't own any of it, because that motherfucker was standing there looking at you and pushing you around the whole time. So what's the point? You know, you're not even bringing God some great gift that you created your great life all by yourself. You know?
Yeah, it's kind of like being tortured into saying something that you know that the torturer just wants to hear. It's not
Yes.
it's not about, you know, like if you have the screws put to you and they want an answer and they've already decided on what the answer is, you will give them that answer sooner or later. And
Absolutely.
it's not quite as extreme as that. I understand, but
no, but anything to relieve the pressure, right? I mean,
yeah,
even
exactly.
small amounts
it does
of
feel
pressure.
torturous.
Right. Absolutely. I agree.
Hmm.
Well, I think it's a blast to be without God. It's completely liberating. You can breathe deeper. There's just a million dividends to going that way.
Yeah, the a bit of shameless self promotion. My most recent YouTube video was me sort of reading the opening of Bill Bryson's A Short History of Nearly Everything, and in the opening, I don't know if you've read it. Have you ever read that book? No, it's a great book. The opening basically is about how ridiculously unfathomable it is that you're even existing and able to comprehend the universe, and it's about the unlikelihood of that actually being a thing. About you sort of, you know, being a sentient being that can actually sort of look around the universe and interact with it somehow. And I'm like you. I get great comfort from that. That, you know, taking God away from the scenario doesn't do anything to diminish its beauty or how amazing everything is.
I think it makes everything even more mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always annoyed me how you know, people think that by taking God away, not only is everything less beautiful and everything less impressive, but they also think that must automatically be coupled with you feeling you know, like sort of loss and depression and like senselessness and you know, losing your morality. And I get that people that do believe, I get that they think that that's what happens when you stop believing in a God.
Yes.
But you can see by people's actions that that's not necessarily what happens.
Exactly. I mean, you know, you see, you know, it clears up an entire area of your brain for you to just go further in your own explorations, your intellectual explorations, and you know, anything. I mean, there's that whole area that's blocked up by the belief in God. And you actually have to, when you believe in God, you're fucking working around this block to live your practical life, you know? And it takes away opportunities for more creative decision making, analysis. You can't even run complete analysis if God is factored in. You know?
No, well, you have to entertain ideas without feeling the guilt and the surveillance. And I know, speaking from you know, former Jehovah's Witness point of view, you're actively encouraged as a Jehovah's Witness to not look at anything that is against Jehovah's Witnesses and the Watchtower and Bible Tract Society. You know, you're actively taught to not look at apostate literature and books and things like that. So if you were to get another side of the view, which is what I wanted sometimes. And if you want to look at the other side, you want to have a look at some apostate literature to see what it is that the other side is saying, but you also happen to believe in a God while you're doing it. You know, you're racked with guilt again. The surveillance is there, so you can't even be free enough to entertain ideas that you don't necessarily believe, but you want to be able to entertain them hypothetically to try and figure out like what it is that you do believe and you do think. Do you believe them for good reasons, which a lot of the times doesn't seem to be, you know, highest on a theist's list. Do you find that? Yes,
I do. I have, my mother is a devout Catholic, and I am very close to her. I adore her. But she's really into it. She believes it whole hog, but she, I guess, is compartmentalizing because she's able to discuss absolutely anything with me, and it doesn't come into play until you get to a certain level in a philosophical conversation with her, and then you can see where the stoppage is. You know, like for her, there's a cap. There's a final answer. For me, there's no final answer. You know, for her, she will take herself so far and then she'll say, well, all of this is because of God. And for me, that cap isn't there. It just keeps going. So, you know, I'd have to say, in observing her, she lives a really good life. She's a very cool person. She's funny. She's intelligent, and she's certainly of service to others. So she does live the way that her dogma, you know, encourages her to. But she doesn't have a lot of judgment, you know, on others who are not doing what she's doing. So that makes it a little bit easier. I know that that's not truly that common, but that makes it easier for me. So, you know, I have that close relationship, you know, probably your most important relationship with your mother, being such an accepting thing. I really don't discuss religion with anybody anymore, you know, because it's just, it doesn't even come into play.
Well, I don't. I kind of have what I view as like a Jehovah's Witness switch in my brain. So when I'm in the presence of my mum and dad, I go around for tea like once a week, and then as I step over the threshold, the switch happens in my brain where I turn off the swearing and I turn off the. I no longer speak about Christmas and birthdays, the things that Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate.
That's right.
I sort of. You know, there's all these little switches that flick off in my brain, so I just no longer go down those roads. And we don't really speak too much. I don't really get into politics or religion too much, because once it starts to skirt near the issues, I know that I'm going to I know I'm going to hit that sort of glazed expression, or I'll be able to see my mum you know, begin to sort of get uncomfortable with it. And I don't want to go down that road. You know, your mother seems like she's more sort of, you know, if she's able to compartmentalize and she can take on these ideas without feeling emotionally attacked,
right.
Then that's fantastic. But I don't get that luxury.
Well, how long have your parents been aware that this is what you are now, that you're an atheist?
Well, I guess we've never really said it, to be honest. I've never said that I'm an atheist to my mum and dad. I decided not to carry on with the religion when I was about 15, and then I just kind of drifted away and didn't go back, and that's it. You know, we've remained close and everything. But,
right, that's good.
But I've never actually said I've never said anything sort of against the church or religion or God. The closest that we ever got was we used to sit around, and before we ate our dinner or tea, my mum or my dad would lead in prayer, and they realised that I didn't actually pray. So my mum asked me, she said, do you ever pray? And I said no, and she said, can I ask you why? And I said, yeah, no, I'm not going to lie to you. I just said I can't see that it's ever made a difference for people that deserve the prayers to be answered, so I just don't see the point. And I just kind of left it at that. So I think on some level they obviously know, because I've never pursued any religion since then. And clearly
they respect it, because they're not giving you shit about it.
Yeah, they no longer really sort of lead in prayer. They just sort of bow their head quietly for, you know, maybe 5 to 10 seconds, and then they just get on with it. So yeah, they respect me enough to not try and drag me into it, but at the first opportunity of a Bible study, my mum's going to be there. Yeah. Right. Weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wild. Are you an only child?
No, I'm the youngest of 3.
Oh, okay. Are the other 2 practicing?
No, the oldest was actively shunned, you know, ostracized, left to another country temporarily. And,
whoa, fascinating.
And then the closest one age range is a year above me, and he was just like he's the hothead of the family, so he just sort of said nope and just walked away, you know.
Yeah.
And there was not really any repercussions of that, because I think they always expected it. But I think that's why I am the way that I am, because Once the older siblings left, I was the last one, and I was a boy. So males are worth a little bit more in a lot of versions of Christianity. And I showed a bit of an aptitude for sort of remembering scriptures and able to speak to large audiences, etc. So I think my mum's hopes was pinned on me being the redeemer of the family, religiously speaking.
Probably, yeah.
So I think I felt the pressure, and maybe the others didn't as much.
Interesting, yeah.
Although the oldest definitely did, because she was shunned, so she definitely felt the pressure. She left the country because of it.
Wow, wild.
Yeah,
she's got a hell of a story, huh?
Yeah, I'd love to bring her on the show, but she doesn't even know that I do this.
Oh wow, isn't that wild?
I just do this whole thing anonymously. I have asked her a few questions, but she sort of, she has this sort of vague kind of, I believe in a higher power, but I don't believe Jehovah's Witnesses are right kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, I've brought you on as a guest, and I've
I'm
only
sorry.
spoke about my
that was
upbringing.
my fault.
No, I go off on a tangent. Sorry. When I asked you to tell us a little bit about yourself, we got sort of about what you are, or what you like to do, or the type of things that you like to champion. But can you give us a bit of a backstory? You mentioned about Catholicism, but I also happen to know that your dad is sort of culturally Jewish, but happens to be an atheist as well.
That's correct. Yes, and the culture of Jewishness was thick in my home growing up. My grandfather, my father's father, was raised very, very conservative Jewish, and he also moved into atheism as he became an adult, but maintained the culture, the attitude, the food, the whole just Jewishy way. So it was strong, and my grandfather and my father recognized, I'm one of 5 children, I'm the third. They recognized that just, I guess, my manner and my way of being leaned more towards their camp. And so I always had great discussions with both of them. And, that went on all my life. When I realized that I just wanted to have some kind of connection, and I did say that on the You Without God podcast. That's what I was seeking, was just ultimate understanding, and I still seek that. But back then, I just wasn't the least bit satisfied with Catholicism. I wasn't getting any kind of intellectual stimulation. I wasn't feeling that there was a lot of emotional maturity, to be a Christian. To me, there's a lot of emotional underdevelopment that has to be maintained in order to sustain that belief. And that felt confining to me, really. So because I felt so comfortable with the Jewishness, I started to look into that, and I realized, that there's just so much emphasis on study, on broad thinking, broad considerations, and it was very, very seductive to me. So I just jumped right into that. And I went to a local synagogue and talked to a rabbi and got myself involved in some one-on-one classes with him for a couple of years, and then finally had my conversion ceremony and my confirmation. I was really into the social world of that synagogue, and I was in the choir, and showed up for every damn extracurricular bullshit thing they had going on. And I loved it, because there's a lot of acceptance in Judaism for all ways of thinking about God. Historically, it wouldn't take you long to Google how many Jewish philosophers, came out, like Spinoza, with, nature is God. There's not this, humanoid type thing with a giant head and giant eyes up there looking at you. It's nature. And, of course he was excommunicated, but there's the encouragement to keep going further, to find more answers, or to get more information, to adjust your prior answer somewhat. So it felt comfortable for me. So I guess I gave it maybe maybe about four or 5 years, and I felt again completely confined. I felt like I was hitting the ceiling in there too, and so I just walked away from that. And it took me a little while to realize that I was actually an atheist, like you. I didn't really know what I was. I just knew that I didn't belong in any of these, little communities. So it felt weird for a little while. But when I finally realized that my world was not, setting ablaze because I didn't believe in God, I was like, oh, okay, this is all right then. And just continued on with that. And, as you keep going, it's a weird thing to recognize that you're truly an atheist when you've spent 30 some years of your life believing in God. There's a lot of shit you have to go through, psychological adjustments, emotional adjustments, but the intellectual side of it is just pure freedom. So that being the most desirous place for me to hang out, it just felt like a really good fit.
Yeah, when you say that there was this like long process where you don't even realize that you're an atheist. It's not that you don't have an end game in mind. You start to lose these. I guess we sort of we'll keep coming back to identity, but you kind of lose these parts of your identity, or the parts that you felt should have been your identity. And as you lose them, and a lot of the times it's an intellectual process, but some of the times it's not. It's just not being a part of it and just gradually drifting. It's one of my pet peeves, I guess, when I've spoken to many theists, both via the internet as well as in real life. Mm-hmm. When people just want to dismiss your entire intellectual journey as, well, you just enjoy sinning and you don't want to be a part of God's kingdom, and they think that you have decided that atheism is now your mantra because you wanted to reject God, and it's irritating to me because I've met some pretty arrogant atheists, but I've never met one yet that has just said, you know what, I just wanted to throw God under the bus. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have anything more to say to it than what you're pointing out. So
I guess I'm not really asking a question. I guess I'm just pointing out that it's irritating when people like me sort of drifted and then started to look into it and then realized the flaws or the holes or the like you said that your mum sort of gets to the point where she's like, this is how things are. Right. And I don't have anything else to add to it, and that's what happens with my mum. And when I was younger, it used to be things like Noah's Ark, because I like animals and stuff like that. She used to sort of bring me on board to the religion with things like Noah's Ark story because it's very entertaining for a young person. Mm. And then when you sort of grow up and you sort of realize the dimensions of Noah's Ark and you find out, scientifically speaking, the amount of species there are in the world, and the fact that just biologically speaking, they could not continue if there's only 2 of a kind or 7 of a kind, depending on what kind the kind is. Yeah. And then you just realize that just put simply, without any theology, the numbers don't add up. And then when you go back to your parents and realize that they still believe that,
I know.
You sort of just start. That's the point where I started tiptoeing away and just kind of leaving them to it because I knew that I wasn't going to get any further.
Well, for me, I know what you're talking about now. It's very frustrating for me because if you have those relationships going on when you come to your atheism, I understand that exactly. I actually feel like a sense of disappointment in those moments, like a little bit deflated because you're grooving in some conversation and you're thinking, okay, well, it's all right if you're religious, we can groove, we can do all this, we can talk about that. And then you hit these areas and you're like, you can't go any further than this, man. I can't hang with you if you can't go any further than this.
And a lot of the times it kind of it goes down the road of like you want to entertain the ideas. You're even, I'm talking about theoretically in a conversation, you're willing to accept the existence of God so that you can move on to another proposition, and you're sort of throwing all these things up in the air. And at the end of it, once they don't want to go down the path that you're taking them, they'll just say something along the lines of, "I just don't think that you've thought about it enough." And you're just like, "Are you joking?" I can't take that when I'm being told that I haven't thought about it deeply enough when it's pretty much my full-time preoccupation.
Yes. Well, that's funny because, I don't think there's a human being that knows me that could ever say, I don't think you thought about it enough, because, that's what my full-time job is, thinking about everything too much. But, I would immediately have to come back with all the things that I analyzed and thought about. And that's the problem with the people in my personal life that are religious. If they were to say, something like that in a conversation, I wouldn't hesitate, just because it's in my mind, to have the response of, yes, but I've looked at this and I analyzed this and I came to this conclusion. And over here in this area of your religion, I looked at that and I analyzed that and I came to this conclusion. And then they're just sitting there like, well, you have to obey the laws of God. I mean, that's just like, the frustrated final answer. And, they probably just won't even start those conversations in the future after that.
Yeah, get into the who are we to to discuss the matters that are written down in our holy books, and you're just like, well, we are the people that are dealing with the holy books.
Well,
that
that's interesting
evidence,
that you say that, because see, that's the difference with Christianity and Judaism. In Judaism, I mean, let's look at the Old Testament. Moses was like, Abraham, let's go to the big guy. Abraham was like, are you fucking kidding me? You want me to kill my son? He hesitated. If you read the story, he hesitated. He flipped out. He was like, fuck off. But he felt scared, and he was forced to do it anyway, which is insane in itself. But then Moses, he said, I'm not going to do your work for you. I'm not doing it. Even Jesus said, why are you forcing me to do this? Why is this happening? So Jews definitely like the idea of calling out the laws, analyzing the hell out of them, and reinterpreting them, which is how I think they maintain the belief, because they allow their philosophy to continually evolve, and they encourage the children to do that as they begin their studies. So unlike in Christianity, you don't feel intellectually stunted with Judaism. You feel like it is something that God respects when you say to him, I don't like that you did this. I don't like this. This isn't good what you did. You hurt your people. That's what these leaders would say in so many words.
I've looked into a few. I've read a few history, Bible history kind of books, or rather, sort of not Bible history, the history of how the Bible is put together, should I say? And I think it was one of Karen Armstrong's books that I was reading, and she goes into detail about how before anything was written down, the whole point of the Jewish tradition was like, it was supposed to be oral debates. It's kind of like we have these concepts, and we're bringing these concepts together, but now we're thrashing it out because God wants us to struggle. He wants us to figure it out, and he wants us to have an open dialogue with him. Like prayer wasn't even like a prayer. It was like you were just constantly talking to the guy upstairs.
Yes, it's meditation is what it really is for them. It's meditation. Yeah. And what they're ultimately doing, and I think most of them realize this, because there's a lot of Jews that are atheists but still practice Judaism because the culture is so strong. But what they're actually doing is confronting themselves in these meditations, in these debates. They're confronting themselves. They're asking themselves, the last conclusion I came to is this. Will this hold water? And they'll put it out there, and they'll either, compete with themselves to improve that conclusion, or they'll discuss it with another Jew, which happens all the time, especially in schooling for Orthodox Jews. They're put at desks that face each other with their Talmud and their Torah and everything, and they have arguments. And they're encouraged to debate and argue. to me, if you're going to believe, it makes more sense to do it that way because you don't have these absolute conclusions. Now, the Jews that don't have the interest in studying that heavily will just follow the laws and not really, try to upset the apple cart, so to speak. But there's many, especially the males, who feel enthusiastic about that, and they feel that it's a good space for them because there is the freedom to continually question and continually evolve in what they understand.
No, I don't. I don't know. You're like the most Jewish person that I know, believe it or not.
And I'm not even really that Jewish.
I know. Yeah, weird. But what? So my sort of experience of Jews is either secular Jews that are on the TV, or sort of the stereotypical sort of like comedy Jew. So like, is that stereotype true then? The argumentative Jew. Is that
absolutely,
just like,
absolutely, it's true. Thank God, it's true. But yes, it's absolutely true, and I like that too because I love arguing. I love debate. I love arguing. I like to hang out with people that can handle confrontational conversation because I don't think there's any other way around shit to get to the end results, the final understanding that you're looking for. So,
without it getting emotional and without the glazed look from a theist.
And there's nothing personal. There's nothing personal because this person's saying, no, you're wrong about this because this, and this. You don't take it personally. If you have true confidence, you're willing to be wrong because your ultimate goal is to be correct.
Yes,
so if you have true confidence, you're interested in being challenged because the whole point of your confidence, the whole reason it's there is because you continually push yourself to come to better understandings. They become more truer as you go. And the peacefulness that comes with better understanding is the evidence and the comfort. It's there. So, what other way really is there to go? But I do realize most people don't like confrontation, so whatever. Obviously, I don't have a lot of friends.
No, but the ones that can take that argumentation from you, that they're the good friends. They're the ones that you can have a real life debate without ever calling it an argument. So they're the good friends.
Absolutely, and I'm always inspired by those people because they can hang in there, and they always teach me something. I'm very, very strong in conversation. I'm very assertive in conversation, so I absolutely need people that can come back with that same level of power so that I can learn something, Yeah,
you don't want people just bending to your whim because they can't be asked with an argument,
For sure. And I have to say, even my mother can go down those roads with me. Even with all of her belief, she can take those roads with me. She can have a confrontational debate and really let it go because she knows that I'm not going to take anything personally and neither is she. So we can let it all hang out there. And maybe she does stop at, well, that's what God said eventually, but I've gotten enough out of her in that conversation that I am walking away inspired,
Yeah.
So it's worth it.
That what we've just been talking about then just reminds me of something that Matt Dillahunty has said on the Atheist Experience quite a few times, where it, like debates and stuff. He said it's not about I'm right, you're wrong, or you're right, I'm wrong. It's about us trying to sort of explore things because I want to know as many true things as possible.
Yes.
And then that process means I can disregard as many false things as possible, and that's the only way to truth.
I absolutely love that. That totally turns me on. Yeah. It does. That's what it's all about. That's what I get up every day just to do. Get more truth.
It makes total sense because I quite like it because even from somebody like Matt Dillahunty who's quite forthcoming, he can be quite disarming, and I think it's important for people like me and for people like you, people like everybody out there that wants the conversation, to bring it as hard as you feel like bringing it, but also if you're kind of compassionate and it's not about these theists are just flat wrong, it's about what do the theists believe and why. and that, you know, opening that dialogue, and then you trying to you yourself trying to disregard falsehoods as well as getting them to realize falsehoods, then we're all kind of holding hands through this gateway, aren't we? Instead of us just battling forever, you know?
Yeah. If everybody was really looking for the truth, it would be a much more peaceful planet. You know,
Yes.
Most people are looking for power, and they're looking to tell you that they are correct, with no opening for conversation. I have zero tolerance for that. So I just back away and go somewhere else.
That just reminds me of the previous episode I had Take That Darwin on, and he was saying that when people say, if we came from apes, how come there are still apes? He explains that isn't them opening dialogue. That's them screaming, waving a flag, saying, "Hello, I am a creationist," and nothing else.
Exactly.
And that's what we don't want.
Right. You know, I kind of feel bad sometimes that, like, I think about my mom and I think about what she believes, and, you know, I think she's 72 now, very active and very involved in her life in a big way. But I imagine that there's unnecessary anxiety and fret. You know, there's worry.
In the believing of hell and things like that. Yeah.
And it just makes me sad because I think about how, you know, awesome she is and what a great life that she lives. And she actually isn't sure if she's going to be considered a good person in the end. And to me, that's fucking bullshit. That's terrible. And it makes me sad for her because she deserves to think better. And the only reason that she doesn't think better of herself, that she's not 100% sure that that's how she will be judged, is because of this crazy indoctrination that began when she was a kid, that got all in her head and told her how things should really be, you know? And you send these people out into the world, they become adults, they run into some fucked up shit, and God isn't saving them. And there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of depression, there's serious problems that come from that. And it's really ultimately sad. You can't just keep going on Sunday for an hour or whatever the hell your religion does, going somewhere for an hour a week and getting an hour's worth of, you know, psychotherapy pretty much. And you're supposed to be able to take an hour's worth of this bullshit that you heard the week before and stick it into your life as it is today, and that's going to make everything all right. They're just going for their fix to be reminded that no matter how bad things are, it's going to be better when you die. So what happens then? Everybody becomes lazy, intellectually, emotionally. They don't try anymore because they figure, just let me fucking survive this job, these crazy ass kids, this motherfucking wife, and I'll get repaid. You know, I'll get my reward after I die. And there's a whole life wasted. Thanks, religion.
Yeah, you just explaining that all in one go. I was beginning to feel like mental fatigue just from thinking about having to do it, let alone live it.
It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal, and it's insane. And you know what? I don't have enough hours in my day with as free as my mind is. I can't even imagine how brutal. Well, I remember what it was like when I did believe. You know, I think it's sad. And this all goes back to Mr. Watchtower, going back to the self-esteem issue. Because you're taking a child and you're saying to that child, nothing you do matters unless you do it for God. And nothing you will accomplish in your life will mean anything unless God decides after you're dead that what you did was okay. You'll never know for sure. Just try to make sure you're doing the right thing and hope that, you know, you're not going to get the ultimate punishment. And how can human beings live like that with no sense of knowing that they're good enough right now?
Yeah, because the rules as well become so convoluted that it's impossible to know whether you're actually on track or whether you've made the right kind of decisions, or you know maybe you haven't haven't atoned for certain things. Maybe you were less sorry about other things that you thought you might have to be sorry about. Is there a golden ticket? Is there anything like what if you renounced the Holy Spirit once upon a time, but then decided to take it back on board because apparently that's an unforgivable sin? Like how do you reconcile all of these things?
Oh, you just sit there and hope. You sit there,
Yeah.
you hope, you wring your hands, you bite your nails, you take a Xanax, you smoke a cigarette, you shit your pants. Then you go to bed and start the whole goddamn thing the next day.
You said your mum's 72, did you say?
Yes.
72. So your mum, I'm just wondering if you've ever had this conversation. Your mum is therefore old enough to have seen the church make changes as the years go by.
Yeah.
So has there ever been anything that she's that has given her pause? Like
she got mad at God. She got mad at God for like a 10-year period, and she wouldn't go to church, and she was pissed off at him. She wouldn't pray to him, and
was that because of church teaching changing? Or?
It was because she was pissed off at how her life was going. She felt she gave her great. She raised 5 kids, so I mean, she was
as any
awesome.
good Catholic should.
Yeah, and she wasn't passive. Let me tell you, as a mother, I didn't get argumentative for no reason. She was tough. She was way in there. She was interested in everyone and what everyone was doing. And I think, reality sat in front of her and she couldn't deny it. And she felt ripped off, basically, that she had gotten ripped off. Now, she has had her own, personal journeys and stuff since then. And ultimately it was, it just makes her feel good to serve people. She loves to take care of people. And I just think it ended up being kind of comfortable for her just to go back to the church. It's familiar, and she gets to do all of, like, she's a Eucharistic minister. She runs around her neighborhood giving people who can't get out of their homes Holy Communion, and she prays with people. She goes to all their funerals when they die. She's way in there, and it's lovely, and people like her. She's happy. She's got a great disposition. So I think right now she's excited about this Pope because my mother does believe that that like gay people should be treated as equals in every way. She doesn't understand why that's a problem. She thinks that acceptance should just be that you just should accept people, and if you're kind and caring and you're somewhat of an assistance to them, then they will do better. So I think her current perspective fits perfectly in the way that she uses her Catholicism today. She can certainly say that she's devout. She does go to church 7 days a week. So she's certainly devout. She does all the right things. But in her mind, she knows that there's some things that they're doing that are wrong. And of course, she was appalled at the child abuse. The sexual abuse and all that goes on. That was part of what she got upset about. And, I just, I think that she is, again, compartmentalizing.
Yeah, this reminds me of one of my co-hosts who is only known as Norris. It's not his real name, but his dad was training to be a Catholic priest, and he stopped with like 1 year shy of fully becoming a priest. And his mum was a Catholic nun, and she used to work in like places like Bolivia and stuff like that. Anyway, she came back. They met up. She left the nunnery because she was caring for the sick, sick family member. And now that they do a great deal for charity, they go to different countries. They've got a couple of countries that they go to on very regularly. And for them, it really is about being good, being charitable, and the church has given them a platform in which to do that. But if you were to talk to them, they sound exactly like your mum. They can compartmentalize everything. You can have a conversation with them about pretty much anything, and they won't be upset about it, because to them, it's just become, in their later years, it's just become a platform to do good and nothing else. Exactly.
And you know what? They don't even realize that they're not practicing the religion. They don't realize that. And it's scary for them to take that one last step into, okay, I don't really need this umbrella of religion. I'm doing good without that. So,
and they do it very honestly as well. They do it very honestly in the regard that they don't go anywhere to convert. If anybody happens to be a Catholic, they'll gladly pray with them and things. But they don't go in order to convert. They go to help and nothing else.
Right. Yeah,
Just
and that's cool.
You can do
that's
good things with or without religion.
You can. It's just the weird thing is that they won't go that one last step in their intellect,
Yeah.
And, so like I said with my mom, I just feel kind of bad that she doesn't have that comfort before it's all over, Other than that, she's fine.
No, Jehovah's Witnesses are strange in the fact that they don't have like a heaven and hell policy. So nobody's really afraid of going to hell because they don't believe in hell. They just believe that you are sort of removed from God's love. And then you sort of cease to be. And also, there is a heaven, but only a certain amount of anointed people.
I know, like 144,000, is it?
Exactly, 144,000, yeah.
I had a family of Jehovah's Witnesses across the street where I grew up, and I used to go over and ask that guy all about his religion, the father.
All right.
Because I was fascinated by it, We just had your typical Jews and Catholics in our neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting, because people only really know Jehovah's Witnesses as, two questions come up. They say, are they the people that can't receive blood? And they say, aren't they just like Mormons? So there's not a great deal that people know about Jehovah's Witnesses, but one of the things that surprises people is that they believe that they're going to live forever on a paradise on earth. So, like in its present form, as in they will be human beings, they'll just happen to be immortal, and they will be on a paradise on earth after Armageddon has been sort of swept away. For me, my mum and dad believe that they will live forever on earth as husband and wife, but they just won't have any of the children with them. And to me, that doesn't sound that blissful. I wouldn't want to have my children taken away from me.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. It's a shame, isn't it? Oh well, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Well, you say to them something along the line. I mean, I haven't said this, but if I was to say to them, well, that wouldn't be that blissful, would it? And then they just quote scriptures about no sorrow, the former things have passed away, so they believe that all the bad things, it'll just be taken away from their heart.
Yeah, they won't even feel it, right?
Yeah, which I think is a bit insulting, because I think they're just going to be sitting around eating grapes and stroking lions and just completely ignoring the fact that they ever existed.
Grapes and stroking lions.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
If you ever see a Watchtower and Awake magazine, if you see any of the stuff that's directed at young people or anything to do with the paradise, you're either going to see one of two things. You'll see a child stroking a lion, usually multicultural. So you'll find like a black girl and a Chinese boy and a white teenager. Honestly, and then they'll be stroking the lion, and then just across like a nice river, you'll see people like tickling a panda bear's belly or something like that.
Oh, hilarious!
Because that's how they view it, But I'm not going to be there.
I'm glad I'm not going to be there. I'm not stroking no fucking lion with some Chinese kid.
Yeah, I always used to think to myself, why is the Chinese kid not with the panda, and why is the Chinese kid with the lion? Like, what's going on there?
That's hilarious. I didn't even think of that.
It's like they're trying the best to be as multicultural as possible, so they don't offend people, because they like to think, well, they are literally they're a worldwide organisation, so they're trying to sort of cover every boundary,
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, right. I'm going to wrap up slowly but surely, because we're coming up to the hour mark.
Am I going to be able to mention the book we have coming out, me and
yes,
Chris Krasinski, because it's related to the self-esteem and all that?
Yes. Right. Well, I'll ask you one final question, and then we'll sort of say our goodbyes, and you get to speak about the book, and I might even ask you a couple more questions if you got the time.
Okay, sure.
I just wanted to just while we were talking about things, I was just wanting to fire back into the identity thing with them. I was just curious, with you sort of starting off with Catholicism because I guess just because your mum was the more powerful religious, or
yes.
indeed the only religious figure, and you went from Catholicism to Judaism, and you mentioned the things about Judaism that attracted you. Do you think that those sort of do you think that was part and parcel of you finding identity, that when you took on the Judaism and it fit your identity better? Were you? I guess I'm just saying, like, were you sort of were you led towards Judaism because it more suited your identity?
Yes.
And then did you shrug it eventually because of the facts? I guess I'm asking.
Yes, because of the facts. Yes. I mean, it definitely fit my identity better because I was able to behave more naturally with the Jews. Um, but ultimately, what's crazy is all the books that the rabbi gave me over those 2 years to study while we were working together. Those books were the ones that led me to question all of this and to question if there really was a God. So, that sat in my head for a while. And even though I had this freedom within that community to be myself in every way, I continued to study and read, and I just read myself into reality, basically. It led me all the way out of there. It was their own fault, the Jews. They should know better.
That just reminds me of the
Too good of a product.
It just reminds me of the Penn Jillette saying when he says, we need more atheists in this world, and nothing will get you there faster than reading the damn Bible.
It's so true.
It certainly worked that way for me. When I decided to look at it critically, I just hit Genesis, and that was the first time I ever really looked into evolution. So like my first barrier really was Genesis versus evolution, really.
Right.
That's before I even got to Noah.
Oh, fabulous. It's
Impressive.
So crazy. Yeah. Very cool. Well, you've had a really cool experience. I think that's wild to be a Jehovah's Witness, and because that, I don't understand their religion as well as I do, the ones I've been involved in, of course. But I do remember the children in that home, and they were great kids. That Jehovah's Witness family I'm talking about, they were a cool family. They were great kids. I still am connected to them all on Facebook, believe it or not. And now they're all grown. They have their own children, and they seem completely normal, But I remember, when it was one of their children was really close to one of my sisters. When it was my sister's birthday and there was going to be a party, they couldn't come. And there were different things that I felt kind of bad that they weren't included in with the rest of the kids. But they certainly didn't seem to be maladjusted. They did not seem to be maladjusted. They seemed to be fine with it.
Yeah. They're encouraged to sort of be part and parcel of everything that's going on around them, but they have this kind of they have this mantra that's they always repeat the phrase that they're in the world but not of the world.
Yes, isn't that a lovely thing to tell yourself? How convenient.
So you can interact, but only in the way that God would see fit. Yeah, I remember when I was I said I left when I was 15, so I was just approaching the end of school. So I took my GCSEs. I don't know what the equivalent is in America, but like the finals for like when you're 16, ready to go to college, and my friends bought me like baby cards, like for a 1-year-old, because it was like my first ever birthday. So I had these birthday cards that I hid from my parents that said, congrats,
so cool.
Congrats, you're 1 year old, and I had a badge that said 1 on it.
That's really great.
So I guess I'm 16 now.
Mazel tov, doll.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so tell me about if you want to know a little bit more. By the way, if you're just listening, if you do go to the You Without God podcast, which I'll link in the description of YouTube and in what's it called, Stitcher and iTunes, then you'll be able to hear an interview with me and an interview with Jen. And the interview with Jen goes into a little bit of detail about the book. But just for this podcast, Jen, do you want to just tell us about the Chris Krasminski book?
Okay. Chris Krasminski is writing a story based on the actual events that took place, and you saw some of that in my blog that you read. There was a series of 4
I think it was
posts.
The blurb, was it? Or I think you put the synopsis on quite recently.
Yeah, well, actually, it wasn't that recently, but yeah, a few months back, and but there's a series of 4 blog posts in there that I had written. I guess maybe a year and a half ago or so, and it's an intriguing experience that I had. There's no two ways about it. It was difficult, brutal, crazy, all of that stuff. But what I was able to glean from it, is just priceless. And so I was analyzing my experience and writing about my analysis. And I had a conversation with Chris about this, and we talked about it a few times. And, I have been wanting to write about it, and I just didn't get around to it. I could not find the right voice for myself to write the story. So he had said that he was interested in the story and said, man, this would be a writer's dream to write this. So I just automatically, having read his first book at that point, which is, have you read that, by the way? What Are You Without God?
I haven't, no. I feel
Oh
terrible
my God.
about that, having been on
You
the podcast.
totally would love this book.
But I've got a couple of weeks off work now, so I think I'm going to try and plow
You
through the
should
7 or 8
really.
that I've read a little bit of and move on,
Yeah. I mean, I really think that you would really get a lot out of this book.
Yeah, I will, and then I'll champion it.
Yeah. It's hard not to champion it when you read it. It's pretty crazy. Awesome. So I just said right away, okay, you write it. And he was like, okay. So this has been something that he's been working on for a while, and it is, it's absolutely gorgeous. The way that he put this story together is amazing. And my real thing in deciding that it was something to be written about was to make sure that the philosophy of recognizing who you are, recognizing your accountability and how shit goes down for you, and that you have the power to change it because you're the one who put yourself in there to begin with. You made the choice. And what were you not seeing? And what were you seeing that you adjusted in your mind so it would mean something you needed it to mean, so that you would just keep walking into that darkness? And, you have to call yourself out on it. You're not going to change any other way. And I have a huge problem with this whole victim blaming term, that you're not allowed to hold anyone responsible for a crime that they were a victim of. But with domestic violence, you're not dealing with a one-day crime that happened on one afternoon in some strange place. You're dealing with a lifestyle that these two people are involved in, and for at least some amount of time, they've agreed to be involved in this very dynamic. So you have to own the fact that you agreed to be involved in that dynamic, and you have to accept that, like I said earlier in the podcast, so that you recognize that you are empowered now. Because you took responsibility, you are now empowered to make the changes, because the changes are up to you too. And to me, that's everything. That takes care of everything.
That leads to your, I think it's your most recent blog post entitled "Focusing on Empowerment," and you're sort of stating that some of you might disagree with me, but tough shit, I'm bringing it to you. But I guess that's the Jewish way, I guess. So you were saying about empowering powerless victims, because it's not that they are responsible for what is happening to them, but if you can empower them.
No, I'm saying they're responsible. I'm going to break your balls right out and say.
All right, okay. Good. I enjoy my balls being broke. It's a debate, isn't it? It's not an argument.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, right. What I'm saying is that the predators aren't blameless, shall we say? But what I'm saying is what I got from when I read the blog was that if you could sort of educate them and empower them so that predators had no prey, then the situation would kind of resolve itself by empowering people.
Right.
Is that kind of what you're going for? Or have I misread it?
Say that again. Say that again to me.
What I'm saying is, if you were to empower the prey, the predators would have no prey. It's like giving a mouse a gun and a cat can't get it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Good.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention that the title of the book is All These Quiet Places. And, you can obviously follow Chris Krasinski to be aware of when the release is going to be. It's going to be extremely soon. He is using the Krasinski fine-tooth comb method right now, doing the final editing. And when you read his first book, you're going to realize how excruciatingly thorough he is. So that's what's happening now. He's doing that to the full book, going over that, and then it's going to be released, and we're super, super excited about it. I am very, very proud of what he's done for my story. Good. Yeah.
Well, I'll link everything in descriptions, so that you can follow me and Jen and Chris, and I'll link the You Without God podcast as well. So that'll all be down there if you go and check it out. I imagine Chris is quite. I imagine he is quite thorough, and I imagine I imagine his language is quite rich as well. Because when I've heard him speak, I almost feel like he doesn't speak enough on a podcast. He used the word in mine. He used the word cloistered, and I thought I haven't heard the word cloistered said ever in a sentence. Yeah, I may have read it once upon a time.
He is the king of language. There's no doubt about that. I think everybody knows that, and it's a wonderful, awesome talent, and to have him speak on any topic is enjoyable and thought-provoking, and it's easy to get enthusiastic about things when he brings them up because of the way he uses language. But also that he was able to grab this crazy-ass story that went on for 7 years and create a story in his way with his motifs and his ideas. It's just incredible. It's incredible. I can't wait till everybody sees it. I almost don't want to talk about it anymore because it's so close to coming, and I honestly can't sell it enough. It's that fucking good,
Brilliant. Great. Well, maybe when it comes out, I'll have to grab a hold of it and maybe do like some kind of protracted review with you or something like that. Maybe in the future.
Oh, that would be great. And I know that he is fond of you, so it would be cool to have him involved in that too.
Yes, let's do a 3-way, Chris.
Oh yeah.
we can just let him talk and just try and pick out great words.
Oh no way! I don't ever just let him talk. What are you kidding?
Great.
You gotta get right in there.
I'm going to cut away back to me and a co-host now, and we'll just we'll do the debrief.
Okay.
I'm just going to leave you with the last word though before we go. So do you want to big up anything else before we disappear, or just thanks for having us?
Yeah, I mean, this was awesome. It was really great to meet you, and come on here. I appreciate it.
Great. Well, I'll try and drag you back again sometime once I've got around to reading these 12 or 13 books I need to get through. Okay.
All right.
Thanks very much, Jen. Bye now.
Sure. Bye.
And there she was, Jen August, everybody. Woo!
That was very, very interesting. One interesting lady.
Yes. I think she might debate the lady part, but
yeah,
not her lady part.
Let's not debate her lady parts.
No.
Yeah.
She's a wonderful human being, am I right?
She is. Very interesting story. She's obviously thought a lot about how she views the world.
Yeah, quite a few podcasts ago, I think it was only maybe episode 4, maybe, we did something about identity. Do you remember when we were talking about like the definition of words and do you call yourself an atheist, and should it be a redundant word? Like what is the difference between atheist and anti-theist, etc., etc. So I think because identity comes up a lot, I think in the future I might just do an identity podcast, get her back on, and also get her back on when the book comes out, because she's quite interesting, and I think I could bring her on. I was talking about this once we finished recording, but we were still on the call. We talked a lot about the way that because she has a lot of strings to her bow, I could bring her on about pretty much anything, about Catholicism, about Catholic upbringing, about Judaism, about living in a home with one religious parent and one not so religious parent, and how that dynamic works. Abusive relationships. Like there's so much that I can speak specifically to her about. I want to drag her on again. So if she's listening to this, which I presume she might, we'll look forward to hearing from you again, Jen. Interesting though, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Enjoyed that.
Yeah. Right, well, I'm going to have to wrap this up because I know that people aren't going to want to download something if it lasts for longer than an hour and a half. Not everybody's a loser like me and likes to listen to podcasts when they're walking or cycling or running. Right, so episode 14, that's it, done. We'll see you next month, possibly, or it might even be Bonaventure. Say goodbye, Norris.
Goodbye, Norris.
Bye now.
Bye.